All right, so the San Francisco 49ers made headlines when they traded 3 first-round picks and more to move up to the third overall pick in the draft. A lot of people are anticipating possibly selecting a QB. So we got a 49ers fan here, and we got to ask, are they moving up to select a quarterback, or what are they planning to do in the future?
I've got to say this pick is for a quarterback. I mean, we've seen four of the top five quarterbacks not named Trevor Lawrence connected to Shanahan in some way. It seems like they're getting ready to move on from Garoppolo. I would definitely say they're moving up for a quarterback. It's just a matter of which one.
So which one are you looking at?
Well, I think my opinion. I think the best option right now is that I could see realistically happening is Justin Fields. I think he's got a great arm. He's got something that Garoppolo doesn't really have, and he's got that deep accuracy. He doesn't have concrete bricks on his feet in the pocket like Garoppolo does a lot. He moves around, and I think you just with that Shanahan offense and that run game that they have consistently every year, I think you open up that offense a ton with Justin Fields in the lineup.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you give up that much capital unless you're going to take a quarterback. You're giving up your first this year, future first. You don't give up that much to move up to number 3 without the idea of taking a quarterback. And I agree with you. I love Justin Fields. I mean, he just ran a 4.44 40-yard dash. So that adds, a whole new element to the 49ers offense. His ability to run the ball will just open up the field plenty for them, especially with the style of offense they have. I think that would be a perfect pick.
So I'm old enough to remember all the way back in the college football season this year when Justin Fields had one of the greatest college performances we've ever seen against Clemson in the Sugar Bowl. And after that game, people were talking about, is Justin Fields actually the best quarterback in this draft? And since then, he's had a pretty good national championship game against Alabama, an exceptional pro day, and one of the fastest 40-yard dash times for a quarterback we've seen in the last decade. So I'm not understanding how some people have gone from possibly taking him over Trevor Lawrence to looking at him as maybe the quarterback 5 in this draft class. The San Francisco 49ers have to select Justin Fields. He fits their offense perfectly. He's mobile and provides Kyle Shanahan with an element he hasn't had in his offense for the last few years. And I would go as far as to say that passing on Justin Fields for a guy like Mac Jones would be one of the greatest mistakes the 49ers have ever made as a franchise.
Yeah, so I just want to talk about that for 1 second. Mac Jones, to me right now is he's the betting favorite for that pick, and to me seems like the second most possible option. So I think people are looking at it like, oh, Shanahan has had lots of Mac Jones type quarterbacks before. You look at Garoppolo, Cousins, whoever it was, right? And they're thinking, oh, he's gonna go with Mac Jones. He fits the scheme, or whatever you want to say. But an interesting thing is Lynch and Shanahan skipped Fields' pro day to go to Mac Jones at Alabama. 2 years ago, they skipped Nick Bosa's pro day, also at Ohio State, and go to Quinnen Williams, also at Alabama, and send the same assistant GM over to Ohio State to watch Bosa, the same one that watched Fields. Two very parallel situations right here, and I'm just wondering, maybe does this pick, Lynch and Shanahan, as a 49ers fan, every draft they've done, I've always almost never had any clue who they've been wanting to go with their first round pick. They're masters of smoke screens and holding their cards close to their chest. And I'm just thinking here, I think the fact that everyone thinks it's Mac Jones means it's not going to be Mac Jones.
Yeah, I see the idea of pairing Mac Jones with Kyle Shanahan, but to trade up to number 3 and take Mac Jones, that doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, you have Justin Fields, and even if you don't have Justin Fields, you have guys like Trey Lance, who has such a similar skill set as far as arm talent and speed. It's just Mac Jones, he's a good college quarterback, but to me it doesn't make sense to move up to 3 for him.
Yeah, it better not be Mac Jones, and we'll get into all the different options throughout the episode. But let's talk about what Mac Jones has done for a second here, right? So he sits the bench his first 2 years at Alabama. And then he comes in as a junior, plays 13 games in a COVID season with some of the greatest weapons, receivers, running backs, offensive lines we have ever seen put together on a college team, with one of the best defenses Nick Saban has had for Alabama ever. And all he does is he just gives those guys the ball. It's not like he's making exceptional plays, running around, throwing incredible passes. He's getting the ball to these incredible playmakers and letting them do all the work. I'm not understanding why all of a sudden Mac Jones is flying up people's draft boards.
Yeah. And I think we do this every draft year. I mean, there's guys that fly up draft boards and guys that go down. And I think this year just happens to be Fields and Mac Jones. I don't think Mac Jones is necessarily going to be a bad quarterback in the NFL, but I just think that, Fields is going to be possibly an elite quarterback that I just don't think you pass up on.
Yeah, and I agree with Jack Wynn. I mean, you look at Alabama's offense this year, and you look at just their skill positions, Najee Harris, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, those are all guys that are going to be taken in the first round this year. So you look at all the talent on that team, and Mac Jones is arguably not even a top 5 player on that offense. So, it doesn't make sense to move up and take a guy like him.
Right. So let's dive a little more into the 49ers, specifically with Mac Jones, right? So their current quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo, and we get the injury issues. We get how he's not really on the field as much as people hope that he would be. But I'm not understanding what you're getting with Mac Jones that you don't already have with Jimmy Garoppolo. Because Garoppolo can make the reads, he can get the ball out quickly, and I feel like those are all the advantages Mac Jones gives. So what do you guys think about Mac Jones versus just Jimmy Garoppolo?
Well, I think the argument or what they're seeing is, Garoppolo, take out last year, he was injured even when he's on the field, his ankle is bothering him, whatever. Look at that Super Bowl year. He was a game manager, I think. Maybe slightly more than that. I think with Mac Jones, I think you're looking at, we've seen Garoppolo's ceiling. I think with Mac Jones, the hope is that, you can get at the floor, you're going to get that, and hopefully maybe something more. And I think that's the thinking behind it right now.
Yeah, and I definitely agree that Garoppolo could be an NFL quarterback and make the right reads, as you said. I mean, he just went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago and was winning for the first half of it. So you got to take a guy who's going to be significantly better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And so the question is, Mac Jones going to be significantly better than Garoppolo's been playing? I don't know. You gotta find the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I feel like there are a lot of options that guys that are significantly better than Garoppolo this year,
Yep.
Like especially in the draft specifically. Like we could talk about Trey Lance for a little bit. The way that he plays kind of like a strong arm mobile system, it looks like he's out there playing flag football. Like I feel like there are different options they can go, and Mac Jones is like the worst possible one.
Yeah.
I like Trey Lance. I think he's a good quarterback. I think, he obviously plays that similar style to Fields in that he's mobile, can throw the deep ball well. And to me, that's so important, especially for the 49ers and that offense they run. And that was Garoppolo's 2 biggest weaknesses, was his mobility and the deep ball. And to me, though, I just think Fields is a bit of a better Trey Lance. I think if you're going to go with Lance, with Fields still on the board, that doesn't make much sense to me, because I think they're similar quarterbacks, and I think Fields is the better one. But I'm still taking Lance over Mac Jones.
Yep. So if we assume that the first 2 picks off the board are Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, to me, those are the best 2 guys, Fields and Lance. And so the question is, which one is going to be better in the NFL? And you could really make an argument for both of them, just based off what they've done in college. I think they have really similar skill sets. And I don't think the 49ers could go wrong with either of those guys. I think they could definitely translate to the NFL. So the question is, which one do they like more?
Yeah, I think that's all at the end of the day what it comes down to, what Shanahan and Lynch are seeing. Yeah. I think one other option maybe, like with Trey Lance or just something I see with Trey Lance is just from the D2 school. And I know we've seen, players come out of his school, specifically in Carson Wentz, but I'm just wondering if that has anything to do with it, seeing Fields do what he did against, one of the best teams in the country in Clemson versus Trey Lance and whatever schools he was playing.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. Trey Lance, I like him a little bit. I know you guys like him a little bit, but it's just a little concerning that he's coming out of a school like North Dakota State, and it like his sample size is so small because he's played one season of football beyond high school, and he averaged like 18 attempts per game in that season. So there's not a lot to really look at. The competition hasn't been there for him. So I'm not all in on Trey Lance yet.
Yeah. And I think another option the 49ers maybe look at, and this is Zach Wilson. I'm really not sure he's going to fall to them at 3, but who knows? Maybe Shanahan and Lynch know something about Saleh. Maybe they know Saleh's not going to draft him. I read that Corey Davis was saying that when he signed with the Jets, he believed Darnold to be the quarterback. Now, that could be just an absolutely genius smokescreen from Corey Davis and the Jets. But I just think that Wilson would also make a ton of sense in that Shanahan system, but I just don't see it happening. But I think if Wilson falls to 3, I think that's the pick.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I love Zach Wilson. I think he's easily the second best quarterback in this draft behind Lawrence. And if for whatever reason the Jets don't take him, if they take another quarterback or if they go for a different position, I think you have to take Zach Wilson. I think he easily has an NFL elite arm, and he'll be an instant impact on that team of Garoppolo.
Right. So let's play a game here, right? So let's say the Jets decide, okay, we like Sam Darnold. We're going to protect him. We're going to draft Penei Sewell. So now the 49ers are looking at Zach Wilson amongst those other guys we've been talking about. Is he who you would select?
Yeah, no question. I think his arm is just much better than any other quarterback available at that point. I mean, if you look at his college tape, he's able to make every throw. He makes them accurately. He doesn't really miss a lot of throws. You know, his arm strength is obviously on a different level. And so to me, you just got to draft him and you just got to plug him into that offense.
Yeah, I take him over Fields for one reason. I think they're both going to be good quarterbacks. I think Fields maybe even has the higher potential, but I think Wilson's just a little bit more pro-ready, and with the 49ers, you need the most pro-ready you're going to get right now in that division, in that, you know, because they're going for a Super Bowl. So I take Wilson just because I think he has more potential right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hear what you guys are saying, and I feel like there are one advantage Wilson gives you is if you draft him, he doesn't have to sit for any games at all. He can just walk in and, you know, start playing for the team in the regular season. But I do have some reserves about him a little bit. You know, like he played at BYU. He wasn't going up against great conferences, great opponents. And when he was trying to get into the playoffs, they scheduled the game against Coastal Carolina. He kind of stunk it up. And if you're the 49ers and you know you're trying to make a playoff run next year, and you have a game at the end of the season that could try and get you into the playoffs the way Wilson did against Coastal Carolina, can you really rely on him? It's those things, plus I feel like he was a little not as great on the deep ball as everybody else has been saying. So it's just those things that I reserve a little bit about Zach Wilson.
Yeah, there's no perfect NFL prospect, right? Even Trevor Lawrence has flaws. Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, you know, nothing's perfect about them. I think you gotta trust your scouting report, and whichever quarterback to me seems like the best fit for your team, you just got to take him and give him a chance. So to me, that looks like Zach Wilson if he's on the board.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, you know, there's a line between is he a bad quarterback or was that just a bad game?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's probably, you know, he's obviously not a bad quarterback. Maybe it was just a bad game, maybe it wasn't. But yeah, at the end of the day, you gotta just kind of trust your scouts, trust what you're seeing. And I agree. I think Fields is not Fields, Wilson. Just for the sole fact, I think he's a bit more polished. I would choose him first. And, you know, I'm an Ohio State fan saying that. I still really like Fields. I would not be upset with the Fields pick.
Yeah, so I mean, Wilson, I agree with you. He can put the ball wherever he wants, really. But I'm just worried about how he's going to be able to fare with NFL corners and NFL linebackers and defensive linemen coming at him instead of college guys. So a lot of the stuff that he does really well in college might not be as great in the NFL.
Yeah. So one thing to just summarize this, we have Fields, Wilson, Garoppolo, Lance, and Mac Jones. 5 quarterbacks, 1 to 5. You know, you're kind of ranking. I can go first. Mine would be 1. I'm gonna go with Zach Wilson.
Over Trevor Lawrence?
Or sorry, not including Lawrence.
Okay.
Like Wilson, Fields, Jones, Lance, Garoppolo. All right, so I go Wilson 1, just for his pro readiness. 2, I'm gonna go with Fields. 3, I got Trey Lance. 4, I'm gonna say go with Garoppolo and use that pick on someone else. And 5, I'd say Mac Jones because I don't think giving up that much is worth Mac Jones.
Yep. So I like your list. I'm going to go with Wilson at 1, 2. I think he has the best arm. 2 is going to be Fields. 3, I have Trey Lance. You know, all the reasons you mentioned. And at 4, I'm actually going to take Mac Jones. You know, I think he's a slight upgrade over Garoppolo, and he's much younger than Garoppolo is, and he also has a higher ceiling than Garoppolo does. So I'm going to put Garoppolo at 5. I don't think sticking with Garoppolo is a bad option, but you know, you look at all these other guys on the board. You know, it doesn't make sense not to take an upgrade at that position.
Yeah, Jack Blasco's right. I mean, if you look at Jimmy Garoppolo, it feels like he's way younger than he is, but he's 30 right now.
Yeah.
And it feels like you move up to number 3 and you trade 3 first-round picks. This can't be something that you're just going all in on your 30-year-old QB. It's almost got to be another rookie. So I've got Garoppolo, quarterbacks other than Lawrence. I would take Fields number 1. I love the way he's been able to play in the Big Ten, the way he's been able to go up against these elite opponents. Zach Wilson 2, Trey Lance 3, and Mac Jones 4.
Yep.
One thing about Mac Jones over Garoppolo is it's also a much cheaper option with Warner and Bosa both needing extensions in the next 2 years.
What I would have done if I were San Fran before making the trade is I would have tried to move up to the Eagles pick at 6 and take either the offensive lineman or a wide receiver.
Yeah, and at 6, I think Mac Jones will still be around at 6. So if that's really the guy that they wanted, you didn't have to trade up to number 3. You know, Mac Jones, chances are Fields and Lance will both go first. So you're sitting at 6, you'll probably still get Mac Jones. So the question is, you know, who is it that they needed to trade up to number 3 for?
A lot of people think Mac Jones would have been available at 12 when they were originally taking.
I don't think it's Jones. It just, to me, it doesn't make any sense with what I know about the 49ers and just everything that's happening. Mac Jones just doesn't make sense at 3.
That's interesting, though, what you were saying at the beginning about what they did with Nick Bosa and how they sent the same guys to Alabama instead of Ohio. And I'm wondering if that's more about the talent Alabama has than Mac Jones specifically. Like, oh, yeah, let's go watch Devonta Smith, too. And we can send our assistant GM to watch the quarterback we like.
Yeah, and I also wonder how much value those pro days hold when, you know, they've got no equipment, they're not making any reads, they're just throwing a ball to one guy, and versus, you know, watching him in, you know, the semifinals against Clemson making reads with, you know, his ribs hurt, maybe like, you know, I don't see how much value that pro day really has.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest factor when you look at quarterbacks is their game film, you know, how they played in college. Because you're right, all these numbers, their 40-yard dash, you know, how far they could throw it in their pro day, it really means nothing when you can't see it translate to the field against, you know, a real defense. So I think they just got to make their best guess and just really evaluate the film on these guys.
Yeah, so I mean, pro days are like you're in your own building, you're throwing to your own guys.
Yeah.
But what I found kind of surprising about that, was Mac Jones didn't have a great pro day. Like, it's designed so that you're supposed to look great, and Jones was overthrowing guys at his own pro day. And I feel like after all this and after everything that's been going on with the 49ers, if you still take Mac Jones, it's a little hard to understand.
Yeah. I'll be very angry. I will not have a good draft night if that's what happens.
Yeah, I have a feeling this pick is going to be Justin Fields. You know, to me, you look at all the college critics and you just look at everything that's been happening this season. I think this pick has to be Fields. You know, if I'm wrong and they take Mac Jones, then it would be a little disappointing to see for the 49ers, but, you know, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's Fields too. I'm a huge fan of his, and I feel like he would work really well with Shanahan.
Yeah.
All right, so draft's coming up way closer than you think. The 49ers are almost on the clock. We're all expecting Trevor Lawrence to go first. Who will San Fran select at number 3?
For more creative, informative, and high-quality sports content, make sure to follow Phenom on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as all of the Phenom podcast channels for each sport. The link tree in the episode description includes a direct link to all of the aforementioned platforms, so click on that to access everything. Phenom boasts a team of over 100 youth contributors from around the world, covering every sport on every media platform. If you are interested in potentially joining the Phenom team as a writer or content creator, send an email to cole@phenommedia.net showing your interest. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so we can grow the channel. We really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.